And okay, we're back. Well, this is exciting. So, I'm just going to make sure over here. Yeah, yeah, we're online. Oh, this is very, very cool. All right, all right. Hello, one and all, and welcome to another episode of Building Worlds. This is an open writing session with me, Joshua MacGregor, as I go and build worlds. This is uh, the idea behind this is very much like I want to be doing this on my own anyway, and uh, world building and trying out different ideas and all this stuff is something that I love doing. I absolutely adore doing it. The idea of this is to share that with you and to share my process with you. So I will be talking through all of the steps that go into making a world that is ready for either storytelling or Dungeons and Dragons campaigns and sessions. And the wonder of it is, a lot of people have advice about world building, and all of it's really really good. There are some fantastic YouTube channels to check out. Hello Future Me is great, and I know that there are a huge number of specifically D&D related ones, but just writing ones in general that have videos of like how to be better at world building, what things to take into account. But there are very few resources out there that show you somebody actually doing the work, somebody actually making a world and looking to populate it and to tell stories within it. So that is what this is for. This is for you to see an open writing session about somebody who's watching me actually do the work, put these these ideas and advices into effect. I'm not it's not didactic. I'm not doing this with the intention of like, this is the way you must do this. In fact, very much, I have pitfalls as a world builder for sure. Part of this is me getting better at doing it. But the fun is that I get to do it with you, and I get to have a little discussion about everything that's happening on the stream, live. Whomever wishes to drop in is more than welcome to do so, and we can have a little chat about it. People can post their ideas, their worlds, the things they want to discuss, characters, and questions about what I'm doing, and so it is very, very, very fun. Based solely on last time, because it was a great time last time. With that said, let's dispense of any further waffling and get into what we're doing today. Last week was the first one ever, and we looked at Reyara, which is a very, very fun world. In my opinion, well, it was fun for me to build. It is a world covered in water, with archipelagos and many intelligent races that rise out of the deeps and like different layers of depth, which bring with them layers of separation between peoples and prejudices and what have you, and this mystery of what lies at the bottom of the oceans. And there are all kinds of like very wonderful things that were sort of decided upon last time. But what I'm going to say is, if we're not going to do a recap of all of that stuff, if you are interested, the first one, it's called Number One, and it's on Twitch. It's on Twitch right now. And if you're watching this post it being on Twitch, because it will not be on Twitch forever, it will have moved over to the Hidden Realms Dungeons and Dragons channel, where we post sessions of D&D and campaigns and things that we do. It's very long form, and not a lot of people watch all of that stuff, but that's where that will live. Moreover, if you want a condensed version of what we did last time, I have posted to my YouTube channel, Joshua MacGregor on YouTube, which is affiliated with his Twitch channel. I'm sure there's a link somewhere that you can find. I have posted a 15-minute breakdown of what was created last time. But that's not what we're doing this time. We are, in fact, staying on Reyara, but we're getting a little bit more detailed. We're getting a little bit of a closer look at this world, and in a different way, because very much we built the bones last time. We built, the major conflicts of the world, the geography, the races, the mythologies, all of that stuff. But now what we get to do is we get to build culture and cities and talk about commerce and how people interact with each other in order to make money. What wars have been fought, if any. All of that good stuff is where we're at now. And that's the thing I am so excited to get to. So without further ado, I'm going to have a sip of tea. Immediately spill the tea everywhere, because of course I did. And we're going to get right into it. So we're back. Oh god. It wasn't actually that bad. Can I get a little more light on me? Yes, I can. That's what we want. Now we switch over. There we go. We're back on the Reyara world building Google Doc, because that's something I can share with you. I can show to you the Reyara Google Doc. And we've got all of this now. I am going to be doing this on the same file that I was doing for the previous world building for Reyara. The reason for which being I want to be able to easily reference back to all of the things that easily reference back to all of the things that we came up with last time. So this is like easy reference more than anything. And, as I'm talking you through what I'm doing, this is, if this is helpful for you, fantastic. I am very glad. And if not, then do it your way. Your way is probably better than my way. We are also going to go over to Incarnate because we have a map of this world, and it's going to be good to reference back to it. The other thing I'm going to do is get out a notepad and paper. I have it right here. And that is for the very simple reason that there are going to be times when I want to do things longhand. There are going to be times when I want to make up names. That's one of the first things we're going to be doing, actually. And I always prefer to do that longhand. I just like the feeling of writing on paper for those moments. So we're going to do that. The other thing we're going to do, actually, while I talk to you a little bit about some of the other stuff that has happened in the preceding week leading up to this stream, is I'm just going to send out a little message to people saying like, hey, this is happening. So, is there a way to... Yes, wonderful. So basically, what happens with me world building wise is we had our session last week and it was awesome. And I had such a good time. And then I started to I continued to think about it, right? I continued to come up with new ideas over the course of the week. Just while I'm at work, walking down the street, trying to go to goddamn sleep, all of that stuff is time where my brain comes up with ideas. And here's a fun thing about people's brains, or some people's brains, because everyone's brain is different, but for my brain and for a lot of people's brains, if you ask questions, if you pose questions to your brain, and you don't have the answers to them right away, your brain will work on them in the background and start to produce answers at random intervals when it's been processed in the background. You've got like the forward RAM, like your brain's a computer, and you've got like the active RAM, and then you've got some backup RAM that's working on background programs and things. So that's really, really fun. And it means that I have things to update you guys on from last time. Alberta, how wonderful to see you in the chat. Alberta, we were here last time. It was wonderful, wonderful. I am streaming. Check it out if you have time. Oh, I'm very well indeed. Thank you very much for asking. Um, I no, I'm really good. For everybody out there, I didn't sleep great last night. And then I went to work and had a perfectly wonderful day. It was a much better day than I was expecting to have. And oh, I'm an idiot and everything's going badly over here. I put my tea down on a little slab of chocolate that I wanted to eat, and now the chocolate has melted. So that's kind of fun. Well, we'll figure that out in a minute. But I had a wonderful day. I was thinking about this all day, and just been good news from loved ones and people all around. And then I came home and I put as much food as I could fit into my mouth here. And then I came on, so that was really fun. And we've got Daisy as well. Hello, witching hour. How are you guys doing? It's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful to have you here. And right as we're beginning, right as we're about to get into the juicy good stuff. Both of these guys actually are responsible for some of the things that I'm going to update you guys on, which is a lot of fun. Which is basically, I am putting together a D&D one-shot session set in this world, because it seemed like a lot of fun to do the world building and then actually like tell a story with other people and the characters that have been like that I put forward like a little story hook, and then the characters that were come up with by my friends, who were going to be the players, were so phenomenal. They were so interesting, and they helped flesh out areas of the world that I hadn't thought to flesh out. It was awesome. And so, let's start with the first thing. The Galo-Shahal continent, which I believe had a different name, but the butterfly continent is occupied by a new race that we didn't talk about last time. We're talking about Sirens, baby. We're talking about Sirens. And Sirens felt like such a natural fit for this kind of story. The winged, enthralling women of like Greek mythology who can lure sailors onto the rocks, that kind of thing. So wonderful. And fantastic. So. One person, we did a lot of world building about Sirens and what their culture is like, and they have this very, very beautiful melodic, these voices, which through which they maintain the ability to communicate with these like whale entities in the deeps called the Kujalmara, who are singing in the deep, and many believe that they're singing is a lullaby that keeps the evil gods in the depth at bay. That's not what the Sirens believe. The Sirens believe that they sing the laments to the races that continually evolve away from the depths towards the surface, leaving their civilizations underwater to fall. The reason for which being that it's very, very dangerous in the water, and the safest places are actually on the surface, are actually in the sky and away from this world. So the Sirens believe anyway that the Kujiomara mourn the loss of the Sirens as underwater folk, and of course the Aragiri, who are the Arctic people as well. And their name for the Kujiomara is the All Mothers. So the mothers of all the races. And instead of believing that there are dark gods at the bottom, they believe rather that the darkness of the depths of the ocean is the origin place of all life, and the Kujiomara helped sing everybody into existence, which is a very, very beautiful thing indeed. And I think we can actually... Let's start with Galo-Shahal, right? Let's start with very, very large landmass that we've got here. But it was pointed out last time, which was a really interesting idea, that the tide and the storms make a huge difference to the amount of landmass that you actually see at any given point. And I think if we were going to do this world map justice, and we're going to do it properly, we would put a lot. Pardon me. We would put a lot less land and a lot more water in between all of the different land masses. But this works for our purposes this time because we get to say, you can see here. Let's make this a little. You can see here all of these waterways that go through this sort of like butterfly, through these wings that appear to be the shape this continent forms. You can see how when the tide rises, those might rise up as well, and the land mass actually might become very, very minuscule indeed. Little tiny strips of land, like jagged and pointed, almost like like those like jagged rocks that stick up out of the water at the off the cliff sides that seagulls and things perch on, and that's where the Sirens sort of have made their home, is on this continent of Galo Shahal. And and for the Siren folk, it almost makes more sense. Like let's talk about culture. Let's talk about nation. Let's talk about like how these people here form society, and let's like go place by place, people by people, and let's build some cool stuff. Um. So, so Gal Shahal, this might, you know, the thing that we've talked about is that the Sirens would be an omen of Sirens help sailors and help people on the surface, and like can tell when storms are coming, and can tell when when dangers are coming out of the deep. So Sirens might actually fly far and wide and help travelers, and be the like sort of like the messengers and the lookouts of this world. um and these people who sing these very, very mournful songs of having lost their time in the water, are no longer able to return in the same way they were down into the depths. They can no longer breathe underwater. They have to stay at the surface. And this oscillation between this deep mourning and sorrowful singing, and the joy of flight, and the joy of being in the sun and flying, being this thing for these people. And I think those who remain in on this continent of Galo Shahal would likely be small communities, right? Let's we can see a lot of like small communities with a lot of communication between them, because people are able to fly between different areas of the continent, and are able to communicate with a lot of other places. But this sort of decentralization, this idea that the Sirens can actually go wherever they please, and travel around between these different archipelagos and territories as much as they should like to, so long as they have a place to land and to rest. And for those long journeys between sort of the continent here and sort of this archipelago, like this journey here, or this journey between the human Erzulite territory and the Galoshahal continent, the more boats there are, the more little islands they can find, the better they can time it, the better able they are to make those journeys. So the coming of the humans and the Erzuli and the increased ship seafaring navigation is a good thing for the Sirens, and they have been becoming more and more international over the past 300 years. So, well, I don't even want to say tribes. Maybe families is the right thing. Like relatively small families. Yeah, the families of Galoshahal. And this place, the idea of which being like lots of life might live in the shallows of Galoshahal, and lots of like barnacles and moss and crabs and all of these things live there. But it's really only a very hospitable place for the intelligent life on this planet, for the Sirens, because it's a very hard place, and the amount of land that is actually available to stay on, it becomes small. Flocks. Oh, I actually haven't seen the chat. Let's go back and let's see what everyone's said. Um, Daisy. Yes, all positive vibes for both of you. And I'm still looking forward to tomorrow. Tomorrow's when we're going to do that one shot, and it's going to be very, very fun. We're going to we're going to be able to post it actually on the Hidden Realms channel. So if you want to see a follow up to these world building sessions, that's where it's going to be. All of this put into effect, essentially, and all the stuff that we're talking about today put into effect, and we will get there. There's a real direction that we're headed in. It's starting a little slow, but we are going to get there. Believe me, there's really interesting stuff at play. We're getting down on ground level now. But the last thing that Alberta's just said in the chat is flocks. Yeah. Birds of a feather flock together. I like that. The flocks. And the question becomes, like, do they have a name for that? I don't feel like we need to separate them by language as much anymore, because especially since they are on the surface, they'll likely have a language of their own, and especially like sing in that language. But I feel like in terms of communities, when they're talking to other people, they would just translate to families or flocks. So, we've got a society of very nomadic, very widely traveled people who are still very in tune with the planet, but becoming more and more accustomed to the surface. And that is what we've got for the Gala Shahal continent. So, because it's got that name, and I think that's a name that I gave it in the interim. I don't think that was there last week. We can actually keep that. We're going to go down, and we're going to say that this is a nation. This is the nation of Gallo. Ooh, I don't like that. I don't like that one bit. Let's go back and grab our font settings, etc. Flocks of Gallo Shah. So this is almost a more detailed working of factions that we were doing last time. So we've got flocks of Gallo Shahal, and we get the idea, we get the sense from Sirens that they have very small communities, very widely spread communities, have a great deal of love for family, and are definitely have this, like, they have a conflict, which is that oscillation between like the joy of flight and the acceptance of their new forms, and this progression of evolution away from the water, and also the deep loss that comes with being separated from the ocean in this way. So we've got flocks of Gallo Shahal, small families slash tribes, or communities. Let's not say tribes, communities, because that's got connotations. Families and communities who are very widespread, decentralized, i.e. their power base does not exist on Gallo Shahal. And, well, travel. Personal freedom, and freedom of choice for the individual slash individualism is prevalent in the society. Thank you for autocorrect. Yes, and how do you spell oscillate? Oscillation. Yes, between. Oh boy, nope, that's wrong. Oscillation. Oops. Between warning the loss of their connection to the oceans and joy at newfound freedoms that come with light. The other idea that they provide services to sailors and coastal cities, which is almost all the cities, to be fair, by predicting the arrival of massive storms. We established last time that there are massive storms on Reyara, and the approach of monsters from the depths. And also, these people can sing. These people have like a holy communion with the Kujial Mara, with the whales in the deep, which means that they're going to be celebrated by a lot of the peoples of this world, and they're going to be celebrated especially by the Erzuli, who are also a singing people, where the singing matters. So all of that is very, very good. So we've got the flocks of Galashahal. We move on to a new nation. Let's go the opposite direction, but still in the same vein. Let's go to the Arctic continent. We gotta give the Arctic continent an actual name. Now, I don't know if there's a continent name generator. Ooh, continent name generator. So last time I showed you my approach using Google Translate, which is something I adore to do, is just like take names, take concepts, put them through Google Translate to a bunch of interesting languages, and get a bunch of sound bits and put them together in interesting ways, and that's how I create my names. Sometimes you do the exact same thing, but instead of Google Translate, you go to Fantasy Name Generator because it's super useful. And we find like Lycreron in the middle here. Lycreron. Lycreron has a cool ring to it. I like that. We don't want anything like Aqua, although it's kind of written there. Aquaphase, Ionune, Queshashore, Kraleoa. I like Kraleoa. And for everybody who is interested, the things that are informing which ones I'm drawn to are what I know about the people who live in the Arctic who would have named this place, right? So on our world building thing, we've got the Aragiri, who are the remnants of a fallen civilization called Aragir. They now live in the cold and the Arctic continent. And thanks again to my friend Callum. Shout out to Callum, making a character for this one shot. We got a much better idea, a little glimpse at what that culture looks like. And it's very much the kind of thing that I had in mind anyway, but we got like a Viking, Nordic feel. We got like a very patriarchal feeling from these people, and a very different relationship with the deep and with the Kujial Mara than the Sirens have. with the Aragiri, you get the idea. In their beliefs, in their circle, their mythos, they are actually the descendants of the Kunum Dea. They are actually the they are actually the descendants of dark and destructive gods. And these are going to be like the raiders. These are going to be the shipbuilders and the sailors and people who are the menace of the surface. Anybody in their waters is going to get hurt. They prove themselves to be men by going and destroying ships and going and raiding coastal cities. These are the people who these guys do not like the Kujiomara, because the Kujiomara in their eyes are keeping their gods asleep. And they believe that for some reason or another, they were forced to the surface. They were forced away from their godly parents, probably by the Kujiomara. So there was this ancient grudge, this wrong that was done to them, where they were banished from the oceans. But some of them can reclaim a connection to the oceans, reclaim their ability to breathe underwater and to swim at great speeds. And so that's part of all of that. So really interesting ideas, and all of that, like that vibe, that feeling goes into like getting those K sounds, right? Getting into like feeling that cracking, that ice, that like muscular giant build. And these guys, I will go so far as to say, like, these are clans. The clans of the Arctic. But let's get a name for that continent first off. And because Arogir is the civilization that they lost, the Arogiri, I think they'll call this like something in relation to Arogir, like what comes after Arogir. Kralayoa is pretty good, honestly. I like Kralayoa. I'm just gonna have a little play around. Kralayoa. Kralayoa. Yeah, let's write it like that. So, immediately we can go over here. We go to our select. Go here. We can edit, and instead of the Arctic continent, this is Kralayoa. And more than that, we can even go. That's just Galashahal. So both of these continents, whether they be actually large enough to consist of a continent or not, they're the closest thing this world has. Chocolate, chocolate, chocolate. Tea, tea, tea. I just got a message and I'm not quite sure what it means. 1 second. I'm just gonna respond to this. Okay, that was private, but I just I missed something and it was very, very funny. Okay, we've got Kralayoa. So now we can go back down to sort of nations. Again, this could be in the faction section, but this is a bit of a more detailed breakdown. And we can say, right, so the clans of Kralayoa. These are going to be like, and clans can be relatively large, right? The Aragiri are not so small in number as the flocks of Sirens. So we're going to say low populations of Sirens up here. Medium-sized populations of Aragiri. And the clans, patriarchal. And here's something that's really interesting. I love, more than a lot of things, I have a really, really good time making matriarchal societies in my fantasy worlds. I've loved doing it. The like, especially in worlds with magic, like women who have magic, or women who have this like old wisdom leading people, is a very, very powerful idea, and it works really well for certain societies. And I know that we as a society are trying to move away from a patriarchal system, which is why it's interesting to represent patriarchal systems as well as the alternative. So if we have a broad range in our fantasy, we can do different things with the things we're representing. So if we show matriarchal societies, we show alternatives to our patriarchal one. If we show patriarchal societies, we can show the inherent flaws in such a system. Same with matriarchal. I mean, like the Dungeons and Dragons Forgotten Realms Lolth lore is a very much a corrupt matriarchal society. So it's everything is about the way you want to play it. There's also something that is lost in a society that does not know how to ritualize the coming into manhood for men. And having those things very strongly ingrained in a society can be something that's worth showing in a good light, even in the context of a people who are brutal and not very emotionally intelligent, and ultimately something that can act more as a cautionary to readers, to viewers, to audience members in general. But there is good and bad in a lot of things, and I think the most interesting way of depicting something, especially if you're depicting something evil, is okay. This is wrong. This is bad, and we don't like. It's ultimately it's ultimately to the detriment of a lot of people. But if not something good about it, then what is it about this system that draws people to it? What need does it fill in its population? This like clannish tribal mentality. We see it all the time in the real world. We see it amongst ourselves. This need to have a few people that you are totally loyal to, the safety you feel in that. It's like, I will protect you. You and you and you and you. You are the people that I protect. And I know that you'll do the same for me. And that is unbreakable. And as long as we have each other, nothing can stand in our way. Like, nothing can hurt us. Or if we go down together. And that unshakable loyalty can be used to cover a lot of really heinous stuff. But it can make people feel very safe and feel like they belong, which is something that is so much an issue now, that is so prevalent in our discussions, is that sense of belonging, and that sense of, well, or the opposite of not belonging. And that's something that Dungeons and Dragons, again, I come back to over and over again because it's so wonderful, it's such a big deal, provides those places for community and experiences, social experiences and social belonging for people who traditionally have not had it. It's wonderful. Thank you for bearing with all of my rambling. The clans of Kralayoa, medium-sized population of Aragiri, patriarchal, warlike society where the strongest survive, and the strongest lead. These guys are going to be seafarers. Ship builders. And immediately, like, questions start to come up. What kind of ships? would the clans of Kralaioa make? Well, immediately things that come into my head is like, you're in the Arctic. There are very few resources in the Arctic. There are very few things that will grow or live in the Arctic. So are there animals that you can tame? Are there ways that you can use what resources there are there to your advantage? And I'm just going to quickly boop, make sure that that is still going. So what I'm doing is I'm having two windows open, one for messages and music, so the stuff that you guys don't need to see, and a separate one for oh, there we go. That's interesting. And a separate one for all of the stuff that you guys will see. Oh no, that's not what we want. I'm just sorting that out. So next time that will be all set up, and I won't have to fiddle around with it so much. But now I can do things like check the chat, see how many people are here. Hello, people. And then get back to what I'm doing. If I don't drink the rest of this tea now, it's going to be very cold and very, very bad. Oh, you know when tea's like just on the edge of being cold and you gotta drink it? Terrible. But immediately something that comes into my brain is like, well, what if they got sea lions, right? And they harnessed them up somehow and they put reins on them and got them to drag ice floe as their ships. How cool would that be? So, I'm gonna write this. Ice rafts / ice floe ships, either with sails or pulled by sea creatures such as sea lions that have been tamed, etc. So immediately you sort of get this idea of like, you're in a ship and you're sailing, and then there's an iceberg coming towards you, and people leap off of the iceberg and boom, down on the ship, axes. These guys are no joke. Very, very, very nasty people. And let's get a little bit deeper. It's like, what do these people eat? So Sirens, for example, are going to have a fishing culture, right? They're going to eat a lot of fish. They're going to eat a lot of seaweed and crustacean life and seafood, etc. So that's going to be like a lot of what makes up their diet. So they're going to want to, they're going to, as sort of winged people who can sort of hold their breath and dive, they're going to be able to fly and then dive and like catch fish, or they're going to have nets and what have you. So they're going to be fisher people, or earn their living in a different way and eat sort of more traditional human food. But seafood's not human food, you know what I mean? And then the clans of Kralaioa would probably these are the kind of like what actual people do eat in sort of Inuit and very north residing cultures. A huge thing is being able to hunt like polar bears, right? You want to be able to hunt seals if you can, or polar bears, whatever you can get your hands on. And then what they use for their clothing is going to be the same kind of things. It's like use the hides for super insulated clothing. So So already you start to get like the necessities of the climate begin to dictate the aesthetic of the people, right? Uh, they wear furs, they wear leather, they wear, they use blubber to wax their weapons and keep them tempered. Uh, they eat a lot of meat in their diet. These kinds of things all begin to come into place for the Aragiri. In terms of their weaponry and their axes, are there locations on this map where they might be able to just 100% be able to do that, right? Like we zoom in here. Let's put a little landmark on here, right? Let's put open the catalog. Let's put a mountain. Let's put a mountain. Oh, and we need that to be tiny. We need that to be absolutely teeny weeny. But like inland, because the idea of like an Arctic continent is very much like the amount of land that is actually there is tiny. It's going to be very, very small. There's going to be, and then the rest of it is ice. And so these people will, but there is some land, and the land right up, maybe right up north, maybe further away from the human and Urzuli, maybe like over here. There's a ritual sort of area where they can undo one of those. Yeah, make it a little smaller even. Oh, that's as small as it gets, huh? So we put that on there. Ooh, yeah. And then we sort of create a valley that can be mined for ore. Because what we want is for them to have somewhere where they can get metal from, right? So where they can get the metal for their for their axes and what have you. And now this site right here, this site begins to take on a special meaning. What is it? What is it like for the Aragiri to come to this place to mine for steel or whatever metal it is that they use? Let's pretend it's steel. Let's pretend it's, or iron even. Let's pretend it's an iron ore mine. For these people who are raiders and warriors, mining feels like a detriment. In answer to your question that must have come a long time ago, it was Winchester breakfast tea, because I've been really enjoying that. That's the kind of tea that I downed a minute ago. This site takes on a great deal of importance because it is necessary to get their ore, but also who wants to work in the mines? Probably not the warriors who want to go out and kill people, but if you've got raiders and you've got warriors, you can have slavers as well. And this is where we get to like old warriors are still useful, and womenfolk in a patriarchal society are extraordinarily precious commodities. Women are coveted. I understand the feeling because I'm in love, and I get the idea. Obviously, women have a great deal more agency than this society would have you believe that they do. But you still wouldn't send women to the mines. You still wouldn't send your own people to the mines, unless maybe they're old and can't fight. But even then, there's a strategic element to, old warriors can still pass on knowledge and can still go out and try to fight, with everybody else, get shown up a little bit. So this area is probably worked by slaves. Let's do our Google Translate thing and find a combination of words that work with mine translated, and create our first city. Our first official city on Reyara is actually going to be on Kralayoa, interestingly enough. So let's go ahead and Google Translate. Yonk. Mine. Moi. Let's do mineral instead of mine. And the reason that we're do that is because mine can also mean referring to something that I own. So. Prodia. Proda. It slowed down for me. That's interesting. Proda. That's very interesting indeed. Let's switch out of Russian. Let's go to Hindi. That's always interesting. Kanij. Kanij. Kanij works for me. Kanij. Khan is obviously a very, very powerful, sort of like Mongolian warlord title. Or Eastern Asian warlord title, which works for this sort of theme, this aesthetic for the Aragiri that we've got going. And again, those Ks, those hard sounds, are very, very useful for the Aragiri. Kron, Prodo, Kanij. Laikani. Kanayo. Lycon. Jaikal. Jaikal. Jai Kahal. Jai Kahal. Let's do that. Let's name this place. Let's get a little text going here. Let's make it smaller. We're gonna pop it there. Let's edit it. And we're gonna call it Jai Kahal. Jai Kahal is a city. It's a slaving city. It's a place where young men will go for their weapons. So we're gonna go Jai Kahal. And the idea we're gonna do was like we're only gonna make a couple of these per place that we think about, that we go to throughout the world. But the idea is just to start to flesh out with a little bit more clarity, actual like boots on the ground. What is life like for an Aragiri? What and if you know that, then you can more easily create characters from this background that can be used and interact with your story. Either you're doing, and it doesn't matter what way you do it either. You could do an Aragiri woman who wants to be a warrior and wants to be a part of this patriarchal society and goes through like a Mulan story and becomes recognized by her clan. You could do a young man Aragiri's journey to understanding that his people's way, or maybe not the right way, by interacting with other societal societies. Somebody who is potentially injured and left behind during a raid and wakes up and is a prisoner and eventually gains empathy. You can do a more tragic story of somebody who isn't able to fit into this society and is shunned from it, and all they want to do is to be a part of it, and are unable to do that because of the harshness of this society and these people. The point is that all of those ideas spring from the specifics of what life is like, and themes start to come into a place where it's like, oh, the 15-year-old boys will go to Jai Kahal and and the slave forge masters will present them with their axes, or their fathers, when they die in battle, will give their axes to the young, etc. So this is a this is a city in the mountains whose purpose is the crafting, there's the mining of iron and steel ore for the axes of the clan's warriors. And does the head of the clans, do they control Jai Kahal? Is that like a place of power for them? So this is like one of their keys to power, and you know, if a clan is trying to take control, do they like try to take Jai Kahal, and then you know they take control of like the money? Like there's a lot of clout that is gained by like running Jai Kahal. Potentially the clan or the family that run this city might be looked down on by those coastal raiders, but have a great deal of power throughout the society of the Aragiri. Do you see what I'm saying? Might be looked down on by other more seafaring clans, but have a great deal of power in Aragiri society. Young men will make the pilgrimage to the city to receive there. And maybe they prove themselves here as well. Maybe they make the pilgrimage to the city to prove themselves and undergo the trials of a warrior, and to receive their axes, weaponry, for the fights to come. So we also get the idea that maybe Jai Kahal has a religious element to it. Maybe it has a spiritual element to it. Spiritual hub of the Aragiri. Question mark. That's a place that you can imagine. You can imagine ice and these mountains coming out of it, and the slippery, dangerous climb up that these young men must achieve in order to gain their axes. Very interesting. There has to be another place of power, though, and there's a reason for that, and that is that they have to have a port of call, and whoever's in charge of the ships, whoever's in charge of the actual way of life and way of earning income for the Aragiri is in charge. So Jai Kahal will have power, but it will be of a symbolic nature and a monetary one, but the wealth does not come out of Jai Kahal. Wealth goes into Jai Kahal and out of it. And in exchange, it's a process. Throw in slaves, get back ore, and processed ore and weaponry. But we need a coastal city. We need a coastal city. So we're going to put one more city on here. We're going to get another one of these. We're going to open our catalog. And marker. I like that. I like that marker. I want the size to be... Whoa-y. Maybe not that big. There. That looks good. We're going to put it close to everyone else. And we want it actually in this bay. And the reason we want it in this bay, or near this bay, is because that's protected. That is protected from sea attack. And you can control these cliffs here. So this city is actually going to live... We're going to say it lives right there. And we've got that city. We're going to make it a little smaller. There we go. That's what we want. And we're going to put some text. Boop. It's not going to be called Jaikahal, obviously, because... but if Kahal in this language means city, or like Jai means like made to mine, Jai Kahal. What does it mean to sail? Let's go back to Hindi, because that was really interesting last time. Chalayatra. Yatra. Jaikahal. Kayatra. Jai Kayatra. Kayatra? Welcome to Kayatra. That sounds cool to say. We didn't even need to write anything down for that. Kayatra. So we're going to write this one down as well. Ooh, except that's got to be a lowercase y, right? Kayatra. Because that's the way we did the other one. So we're going to make that a lowercase y. Boop. It looks a little bit less aesthetic, but makes more sense with what we're trying to do. Kayatra. I like that. Capital of the capital or capital. I have problems, but I'm just gonna leave it as an A. No, I'm gonna look it up. Of course, I'm gonna look it up. Capital is right. Capital is a building. Fine. I did the right thing. Capital of the Aragiri and place of power for the chief clan, the high clan, the clan that has more power than anybody else. And there's going to be one of those, and the reason there's going to be one of those is there's always one of those. There's a most powerful clan that can dictate to the others what happens, what is going on. The most powerful clan. And again, we know that this is a strength-based society, so which clan this is might change over time. People might challenge the leaders of their own clans, or of other people's, like, leaders might challenge other leaders of different clans for control over those clans. But in terms of how they maintain their wealth, it's not simply strictly a strength-based society. It's based on money. And that's where we start to talk about commerce. The Aragiri make money. They earn their value of their society. The intake of commerce does not come from things that they produce themselves, because they live in the Arctic. There are very few things they can produce. It comes from what they can take from other people. So whatever livestock, whatever food they can take, that is worth something. That is something that you can trade for goods and services. The slaves that they can take will work the mines, will curry favor with Shai Kahal, the people who work there or operate the administrate the operations there. The ships that you can steal have value if you're a coastal raider, etc., etc. The technologies that people might have, the knowledge they might have, all of that is useful. All of that you can take. The weapons they might have. The most powerful clan controls the largest port on Kralaioa. And has the largest fleet and best ship, I'm going to put this in quotation marks, ship builders. So that is where they will get a lot of their money, is they'll regularly go forth and plunder. Now, the last thing we've got to talk about for the Arangiri is that the clan chieftains, or the high chieftains, there's something that gives them the power. A symbol of their of the chieftains' power is their ability to breathe underwater and swim like one who belongs beneath the waves. So, again, we thank Callum for this particular thing. But he had this idea, and Alberta, if you're listening, or if anyone is listening who's going to be in this one shot, go away for 30 seconds and come back starting now. He had this idea that he could he would go into this place deep within the ice, and there's a being there whose shape he does not know, because after he leaves he cannot remember it. Some dark, terrifying thing that gifts him power and physical transformation towards becoming more in tune with the water. And thank you. You can come back, everybody who is there. That's fine. Cool. We're still just on Skyrim stuff. Let me just let that go. And so this power is a gift from an unremembered entity. Now, what this entity is can be a mystery, but the implication is this is a gift from their ancestors. This is a gift from some shard or a being of a being, or a being itself that survived the slumbering song of the Kuchilmar that is out of their range, that is trapped in the ice, but gives them the gift. So that is a very, very interesting aspect of all of this. Cool. So now we've got 2 cities, both of them on Kralaioa. We've got the flocks of Galushahal. Let's go ahead and talk about a different place. Let's go ahead and talk about the human and the Erzuli territory, because this is really interesting to me. Because these people are newcomers. Relatively, they are newcomers. 4,000 years for humans and a couple of thousand years for Erzuli is still a very long time to be a part of a world. But with a world as old as this, with a world with such old traditions and such a distrust of technology, that's going to feel like a very short amount of time indeed. And there are going to be people who don't like these newcomers, these outworlders, especially in the recent few hundred years, where trade has increased and more people have been coming to Reyara from off-world. Not all of them human or Erzuli. So, first thing that happened, I did create ossuary. It's called the ossuary. The literal definition of ossuary, I believe, is a room where bodies are kept. Ossuary meaning a container or room in which the bones of dead people are placed. And so I've been a little bit loose with the definition here, but this is where the goddess's body resides. So ossuary is a place of great religious sanctity and meaning for the people of this world. And we are going to put another one of these symbols here. But we used a circle to denote city. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to use a little diamond. And we're going to denote ossuary with a little diamond. And that will denote a place of religious significance. So we have another, and we're going to say, because again, we're going to say this is a continent-sized thing. There are so many islands here, and I think all of these islands have their own governments and trade, and aren't necessarily all connected by the same governing bodies, etc. We're going to say that this is more of like a collection of territories that all fall under the protection of maybe the Inaran Assembly, etc., but are not necessarily all one nation per se, in the same way that Shalgahai, or sorry, Gallo Shahal, or Kralayoa are. So let's go back and let's put ossuary. The religious site burned underwater city, where the bodies / bones of the goddess Nera are housed. Erzuli and believers make pilgrimage here. And so many wished to stay that it has become a small city in its own right. So again, like we talk about places of significant religious importance. But now we get to have a little look, and let's go like, okay, let's go back to the circle, and we're gonna place some cities along here, and I'm gonna say that this is a much more industrial area, right? This is gonna be a much more technologically advanced area. This is going to be a much more heavily populated area, especially in recent years, because of an influx of refugees. Yeah, we're going the refugees route. And the reason we're going the refugees route is because this plays into the larger storytelling of Reyara, not just in the context of its own world, but also in its relation to other worlds. Reyara is part of the Inaran Assembly, a collection of planets, of independent planets with all kinds of peoples living on it, that is a that band together for mutual protection, United Nations of sorts, if you will. So, Human and Erzuli territory is a placeholder name, but this collection of islands is the landing place for aliens here, or of people from other worlds. And it's going to be very heavily populated with humans and Erzuli and other people who have arrived here as refugees from the Tahiri Empire. So that's kind of interesting. In terms of where it makes sense to make cities, we talked about the fact that the interior that's always underwater is going to be a safer place for underwater cities. But we also talked about the fact that not a lot of people who live exclusively underwater want to live near the surface. This would be more of a Triton thing, I believe. Let's go ahead and peek at the regions again. Delegations to the people of Reyara. Oh, I already named it, and I didn't put it on the map. I did a little bit of work besides the stream. Oops. So that is very, very interesting indeed. Utgana, the place of song. Triton. So Gavoon the Shallows. We end up with, right, merfolk who travel up here, and then Tritons and turtles. But they have sort of their own regions before this anyway. And humans will have driven out a few people who might live here anyway. So this is going to be, this is good. Let's copy Utgana, because I definitely can't get that special character otherwise. Let's click on that. And now this collection of islands. Good screen. Kraleo is called Utgana. I'm actually going to make it a little bit bigger. Do I put it there? Do I put it here? I'm going to move ossuary. I'm going to put that. Oops. I'm just going to put that right there. And I ended up doing a thing I didn't want it to do. So let's put it right there. Let's click on ossuary. Put it right there. We're actually going to make it, boop, 2 sizes smaller. And then we see Reyara's body underneath, and that can stay the same size, because that's fine. And then Utgana, I'm going to put right, there. Cool. So, we've got Utgana, which is the center. We know that this is the area of the landing place, the place of song, the place of the goddess. Let's go ahead and put a couple of more cities. Making it smaller. And so we're talking, so we know that this is going to be mostly a surface dwelling area, Utgana. And we talked about the fact that the tides are going to make a huge difference to the amount of land that you can actually see here, which means that that little places like this are going to need, like, the places on most high, like the highest elevation, the highest altitude rather, are going to be the only places where you would actually want to build a city. But there might be cities that are partially submerged, because that way you can do trade with people who live exclusively underwater, like merfolk. And so we start to, like, let's look at the world map here. We've got trading with the Turtle Archipelago. We have a general need for defense against Kralayoa. We have more of a desire to have a city nearby to Galo Shahal, because there are nice people from there. We've got trading merfolk here, who might also be dangerous. We might this entire eastern side might be terrifyingly dangerous for the people of Utgana, which means instead of cities, we might have lookouts and fortresses along this expanse of land here. And the land might provide a shield almost to the rest of the cities that we put on this side, because this side is friendly. Everyone in the west is friendly, and everybody in the east is dangerous. Not that there's not potential for wealth in the east, but there's definitely more potential for wealth in the west, and for friendship. So, we want a place relatively sheltered. We want a place that's high up, so relatively in the center of the landmass, otherwise it will be submerged. And what the cities will actually look like is something we're going to talk about as well. But I'm thinking something like here. You know what I'm saying? I'm thinking something like, if we put something right there, right? So this is going to be a very difficult location for the Aragiri to get at. This is going to be a more difficult location for the merfolk to get at. So this is a good trading hub, a trading city. We're going to have fortresses. I like fortresses. We're going to have fortress lookouts on this side, but specifically we want one there, right? And in fact, we might put one there as well. We want one there, right? The lookout here to defend the back of the city, so we're going to put one there as well. The assumption being that they can't really make it through this much land, any of these people. But the city itself will get enough forewarning from this location here. And so let's say that there's three. There are three sort of fortress lookouts. There's a city here, and I want there to be one more city. And I want that to be a population thing. I want there to be another city there. Do we have something for towns? A little triangle for towns? Sure, we've got a triangle for towns. I want it to be even smaller, though. Nice. And you can imagine, we don't need to put it on this map right now, but you can imagine a little town here, a little town here. You can imagine a little town there. This area is very populated, but only the biggest landmarks are the ones that we care about putting on this map right now. And as you get more specific about the stories you want to be telling, you can, and you say, well, you know, I want a small town person and I want it to be set in Udgana. Well, you can sort of go like, well, you know, there could be a small city, right here, right? So here's the city, and here's a little town that's nearby that contributes to trade and where people can live without being like in the city itself. So you see how we start to populate this world. This is going to be the big trade point. This one right here is going to be the big trade center. And this one's going to be more people who live here, right? But this big trade center is going to be, it's a big deal. This is not only the center of the world, but it's also going to be where the spaceport is, right? So this is where people come and land from the Anaran Assembly. And that I'm moving over here so that there'd be room for the name, because I don't want to move Ghana very much. So suddenly this becomes a very, very important place. This is a place that probably would have been established by humans 4,000 years ago. We look at our history. Empire's born. Humans arrived for the first time on Esmera almost 5,000 years ago. That's like, oh, that's, you know, that's the equivalent of Egyptian times. This place is relatively old. Or right, it's relatively not that old for this world, but it's old. So now we get to come up with a name for this city. And it's a human city, and it means it does not need to fit Urzuli aesthetic. It means it does not have to fit sort of a half-elven, beautiful language. It can be a bit rougher, a bit coarser. We can look at the feeling, the vibe of sort of a more rough, coastal lifestyle, of a seafaring lifestyle. And so coastal city name generator. Harbor names, fantasy name generators. There's one of these for everything, and I love it. Riverport Wharf, Oyster Pearl, Arrow Point, Carl Kett. I like the point of Carl Kett. Carl Kett. Sagdean Piers. Sagdean has an inelegance to it that I love. Hermiborg. Peneding. Hermiborg. Nyaboro, Montau. Blythemouth is very English. Madefort, Brimpsack. Whale Hunter Harbor. That's got connotations here. Belburn, the beautiful burning city. Ooh, Belburn is an interesting name. I like that a lot. Salnock is interesting. We're almost there. We almost have enough. Angelwood, Huntersville. Hinlems. I'm going to put Hinlems on because I think that's interesting. Vincents. Winsons. Killinghampton. I love that. I'm definitely not using it, but I love it. Trevens, Hermisack. Blackbeard Landing. Sure, yeah. I get where they were going for with this. Okay, I think we have enough. I think we have enough to name this new city. So let's put all of this together now. Samiborg, Hermidine, Vendine, Vensons. I like Vensons a lot. Carl Kett, Ventket, Pennaket, Sagdean Kett. Hermicat. Cat is interesting. Hinlems. Ventlams? Ventlems is Ventlem. Ventlam. Ventlam. Ventlem. Hey, we're from Ventlem. I like Ventlem, and the reason I like Ventlem is it's kind of like, you know, not literally with a B at the end, but lamb as in like young, naive, innocent animals coming to this world. Vent as in like wind, vent in French. Ventlems, it is Ventlem, or Ventlem. It would have lost the S over time. Ventlem is sort of like a small town name, but this place has grown since then. I'm gonna eat some chocolate. Okay, so we've got a name. Make it tinier. Ventlem. Ventlem's our big trading city. You can see how Ventlem can do business with the Trident Archipelago, which we will name before the end of the stream, and with Galo Shahal. Very easily indeed. and it's only a little bit more work to get to the Turtle Archipelago, while being very much sheltered, probably from storms as well, um, from the east, from any like Geol merfolk, which we also got to give it like a proper name to. So like those deep, uh, angry, aquatic beings, and from the Kralayoa, because they're going to have these defenses up. It gives, it's got a spaceport. It's got a lot of access to the ossuary, which means it's a pilgrimage site. Um, and it won't just be a pilgrimage site for people on Reyara as well. You got to remember that this is part of an interstellar community. And of course, providing a safe landing ground and a launching pad for people who want to live on Rayar who are coming from other worlds. I think I've bitten the inside of my mouth. Ventlam. So this is the large trading port, an enormous city that has grown and evolved over the last 4,700 years. Originally a human settlement, it now houses people from all races, including those not native to Reyara. It has it has the largest seaport on Reyara and a spaceport connecting it to the rest of the Ignaculus galaxy and the Anaran assembly. So let's talk about Ventlam. Let's easily sorry, let's talk we'll just write down the things we said before. Protected from the eastern threat of marauding merfolk and northern, yeah, I know that's not how you spell that, northern Aragiri, and from eastern storms. Easy to trade with most of the friendly people in the west, including the Portals, Tritons, and Sirens. What does Ventlam look like? Ventlam has to have a shallow depth underwater element to it, I think. Because otherwise, how do you do trade with friendly merfolk? How do you do trade with Tritons who don't want to come on land? How do you do trade with, the crustacean people? What do we call them? Krokrazni. How do you do trading with Krokrazni? All of these are questions. Questions that need answers. To quote Lord of the Rings. I think part of the, city is constantly underwater with a district that oscillates. We know how to spell that word now. Oscillates with the tides. I want to continue very, very much. I do need to use the loo. So I have not yet put together a back in 15 minutes thing. I'm not going to be 15 minutes. I'm only going to be around 5. But I am actually going to go and sort that out. So I'm going to be 5 minutes and I will be back when I'm back. See you tomorrow. glad. And we're back, folks. Here we are again. Do you get like a glimpse of it when I do that? Oh, no, maybe not. Okay, it's all good. So, here we are. And I was thinking about this. There's somebody who is really good at a particular kind of world building. And that's actually a writer, an author named Brandon Sanderson, whose name I'm sure will be familiar to some of you, if not all of you. Brandon Sanderson is a fantasy author who has done such series as Mistborn, as the Stormlight Archive, and a few others. More than a few others. He writes an enormous amount. I've read a few of his books. I love his world building. I love the depth of his world building. I'm not actually a huge fan of, as an audience member, that's my personal taste in his prose or the stories that he tells. Often, that's not always the case, but often that's not interesting to me. But I am a huge fan of the world building, especially in the Stormlight Archive. There's this idea that there are these terrible, terrible storms that ravage the world, and that everything in the world has adapted to these storms. So the trees sort of get bendy and they fall over so that they don't resist the wind. And the cities have been designed to allow the wind and the rain and the water to flow through them. That's sort of a similar idea, or I'm plagiarizing a little bit, for Ventlum. I'm thinking, what if the city uses the tides, uses the water to its advantage? What if it adapts to these things instead of resisting them? And that got me thinking, what if there is sort of like, there are districts that are high altitude districts, altitude districts where you walk around normally, but also districts that are often underwater because of the tide, and create canals through the city, like in Venice. But so not entirely underwater. Also districts that are often flooded, in quotation marks, because of the tide, creating canals. And so in these areas, you travel around with somebody like ferrying you, sort of with a pole, with I can't even think what it's called, but like, just like going along with a pole and or a paddle even along these streets. But here comes the question: what happens when the tide goes out and you still have all these boats that are suddenly grounded? Well, I think to myself, what if the boats worked in both situations? What if it wasn't like, what if it's not the case? You can oh, goodbye, Daisy. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so glad that you were here, and I will see you tomorrow properly. Where we're actually going to be in Ventlum. That's one of the things, is that I already designed the encounter in the city, but we gotta name it. We gotta put all these details down. So this is really, really fun. So see you, Daisy. Goodbye. I'll see you tomorrow. So we've got these districts would be made relatively level so that they flooded evenly. First off. Second thing is, what if the boats worked on dry land as well? What if you use something native to the world? You get deep into the world building, so something specific to Reyara that allows boats to work even on normal days. And I'm thinking that like the constant moving of the tides might make the streets slippery and smooth. Tides make the streets slippery and smooth, not suitable for ordinary walking even when the tide is out. The solution? Question mark. Slipweed! I have never been more excited to say a made-up thing. Slipweed is my favorite new favorite thing. Slipweed is super cool. It's a native plant to Reyara, and the idea behind it is that on one side is incredibly slippery. Like one side is so smooth and it just passes over smooth surfaces. And with the right engineering, with the right application to the bottom of a boat, you can make a slipweed slide. You can make a slipweed sled underneath the bottom of a boat, and that will allow the boat to be to run along these streets relatively unimpeded, even when the tide is out. So slipweed is very slippery and durable. It will pass over the smooth streets with little to no resistance. Applying it to the bottom of a canal boat allows it to ferry people around these districts even when the tide is out. That's my idea. And then you have the shallow districts below that, which are always submerged. These are trading centers. These are trading centers. Or the most. So you can see how much more we've written for Ventlam. Because Ventlam is a big deal in this world. Ventlam right there. The high altitude districts where you walk normally. These house the spaceports, which cannot function closer to at water level. Includes a yeah. So the spaceports are going to be launching pads for spaceships and launching pads for vessels to take you to spaceships above and orbiting Reyara. Also, there are districts that are flooded because of the tides, Green Canals. So you'll immediately see that there are sort of like 3 tiered layers to Ventlum. And you can imagine a lot of things going on. You can imagine like canals moving into walking district, moving into swimming district. Um, the other thing that I talked about with Alberta, hi Alberta, um, is the idea of potable water, of drinkable water for humans. What a huge part of their lives this must be. Um, Trading Empire of Ventlum. Drinking water is a huge deal. Um, early human settlers would have needed to gather as much rain water as possible because desalinating, is that right? Is that fine desalination? Process of removing salt from water. Yeah, desalinating their water would have been too difficult and expensive to do regularly. So you get the idea of like rain catchers. Rain catchers would have hung like clotheslines from every surface between each building and would hang in from the sides of ships to allow crews to make sea voyages. If anybody's read The Life of Pi, he actually has to do this in order to survive on this boat with this tiger. Life of Pi is a great book. I highly recommend reading it. Go read it, everybody. Go do it. So you get this idea of like lots of different colors, all these different imports and exports going up and down the length of this three-tiered city, and rain being caught from every surface in this beautiful sort of like dripping of water in the sunshine. All these different people and languages being called out to each other, and we start to get an idea of a setting, even for an entire story in and of itself in Ventlum, let alone the fact that it's a trading empire with everybody else in the world. Ventlum is very, very cool. Briefly, I want to name this secondary city over here before we we move on to these two archipelagos and this trading territory, because I think this is also very interesting for this area of Utgana. So let's come up with a name for that. We have Ventlum. We have a bunch of different names for harbor that we already came up with. So we've got Vent. We've got Ventlam. Peneding is interesting. Sagdine. Pendine is already a thing in our world, I think. Pendine. Belburn is just kind of really fun. Hermaborg I like a lot. You know what we might do for the Google Translate instead of like sail? Let's do we want like hodgepodge, we want collective, mass blanket, collective, samuhik. a week, because we want it to be like a collection of people from all different kinds of places in the galaxy. Really, we want, what is hodgepodge? Break up hodgepodge. Disorderliness. Ooh, disorder. Let's throw that in there. See what comes up. Vicar. Vicar. Now we're getting somewhere interesting. Yes, yes, yes. Kind of like a bizarre Picard. Roskun. Roskin. Japanese. Shogai. Let's go Latvian. How's that pronounced? Let's find out.
Traucējumi.
Traucējumi. I like that. Traucējumi. Latvian, huh? Interesting. Trauskun. Trauskar. Trauskar. That's what we're gonna call it. It's weird in the mouth, and that's the idea. And it's gonna be spelled. Oops. Trauskar. Ooh, how I like that name. It's not something you hear every day. And that's a good thing for us. Trauskar. There is nothing wrong with making your city names generic. If you can avoid it, but your audience is going to be more interested. Your execution is the ultimate thing that matters, but people do judge books by their cover, and it's a shame that they do it, but they do it. So if you're trying to get that little bit of, as long as people are willing to go with you, it doesn't matter what your thing is named. And maybe I'm giving bad advice. I'm just showing. So actually, I am being preachy. The thing I have wanted to avoid at the beginning of the thing, I'm being preachy. I'm no expert. I'm just a guy doing a thing. So that's what we're gonna go with. You gotta stay humble. You gotta stay honest. Trauskar. Home for an increasing number of people from all across the assembly. This is going to include a character that Daisy, who was on the stream a little while ago, made. People from a completely different world that we definitely will get to, called Envor. People of Envor. Shifters is the name of the race in Dungeons and Dragons, but essentially they are animal folk. They're like not animal folk, but beast people. They're referred to sometimes in anime. They're humanoids with animal-like features, and for some inexplicable reason, in a lot of fantasy, there is like one race that encompasses people who look completely human, except that they have the ears of various different animals and the tails of various different animals, and maybe the hands, maybe like the paws. Maybe they're able to transform a little bit. But the fact that it gets like a range of people in there is madness to me. Unless the point is that they can shapeshift into animals that they choose, which is cool, which is very interesting. Having like somebody who is just static and innately like part raccoon being the same species as somebody who is part cheetah is insane to me. So that is something that I will never do. But these people take on wolf-like qualities. Shifters of Envor, which is a night planet. It is a place where a lot of bad stuff is happening right now. So one day we will get to Envor. Traushakar, shifters, humans. But there are so many races, Josh. Humans, elves. I think we probably get some gnomes and halflings, dwarves, and the list just keeps going on and on and on and on and on and on. So we're gonna put a lot of dots. This city gains its wealth much more from accommodation and craftsmanship. People bring their skills from across the stars and can provide services here. That's how people get their wealth. How people make money is, I will say, for me, one of the most important world building questions you can possibly ask. Because everything ultimately comes down, like, if you aren't able to eat food and sleep in a place that is safe and drink water, then you are dead. And being dead means you don't have a society. Being dead means you don't have a world. We're not building a world, right? So, the Aragiri getting their wealth, their food, their slaves, from taking from other people is meaningful. It means that they were doing that before the humans arrived. Right? They were taking from the turtles. They were taking from the tritons. They were taking from anybody near the surface. They were hunting from the surface. Same with Ventlum. They get their money, their wealth through trade on world and trade to the stars. And by facilitating that trade between those locations, Traushkar services. And Traushkar also sounds a little bit like trash car, and that's fun for me. That's just straight fun. I like it. Oh, geez, a little itchy there. So we come back to our world and what we were building. Already, there's a great deal more specific detail in this world than we covered last time. Already we can fit so much more grounded stories in so many of these locations. We have Udgana, Kraleoa, Galoshahal. We've got 4 more big names to cover. I know I said we were going to do the Century locations, and we will do that, or we can fill that in at another point. It's not necessary for the little bit more depth that we are illustrating, because as long as these streams are with me explaining everything and writing everything down, it slows it down, and the amount of time that we have is just not enough. It's just not enough time to get into that specific layer of that next layer of detail. Because ideally what I wanted to do is I wanted to get all of these named. I wanted to get some more cities involved, and then talk about like specific characters that might exist in these places. And maybe we'll have time. Maybe, you know what? We're going to name the rest of these locations. We'll see if we have time. We might not have time. Maybe we'll be... Let's see. So for turtles, and their archipelago, continent, whatever you want to call it. We need a new name. We need a name that suits Turtle. What on earth is that? Let's listen to what that is.
Brunjolupotsis.
Brunjolupotsis. Brunjolupotsis? What? Brunjolupotsis. Gonna write that down. Yoruputsis. That's fascinating. That is so interesting. Thank you, Latvian. I'm gonna just yell that. Let's go Tamil.
Kadal Amai.
No way I'm ever gonna write that down. I'd be able to write that down. No. Charapaka?
Черепаха.
Jerepaha. I like the number of syllables that so many of these languages have for this.
Skaldbaka.
Skaldbaka. Skaldbaka. We kind of have the idea of like 3 or 4 syllables. Let's go through Gaelic. Thirtar? Never mind. No thank you, Gaelic. Let's do Sudanese. Kuya. I like Kuya. That's nice and simple. Kuya. Turtle. Luxembourgish. Shkelkrot. Ooh, Gujarati.
Kachabo.
Kachabo. Kachabo. I think we have enough now, so we can start to mix and match. Kanyuru. Kanyurubaka. 5 syllables. We got there in the end, and we just took a little bit from most of those words. So let's go back to the map. Kanyurubaka is the land of the turtles, and it will include the sea below and around this area. But immediately, like, what do we know about turtles? Well, they have babies, and the babies need to make it to the water, and they get hunted. And so these shallows, how do I show what I'm looking at? These shallows here, Kanyurubaka, will be extremely important for raising the young turtles, which is the reason they have like land territory anyway. So I'm imagining that they spend a lot of time like defending this area. I don't imagine turtles being terribly like warlike as a people, but very defensive and very, very capable of defending themselves and their young. Kanyurubaka. So we need defensive fortress lookouts. We needed them. We need them to be smaller than that, though. Please and thank you. We need to be defending against Jalakayatra, Jalakayatra, Yorbaka, Yutgana, Galoshahal. There are all these crazy names, but Jalakayatra is a problem. So we need to defend against that. So we got to put something there. We need to make sure that nobody's sneaking in the south. We're putting one there. We need to make sure that nobody's sneaking in around the other side. We're putting one coast there. And that's going to overlook the rest of these. We're saying that there are 3 sort of main defensive, again, sort of fortresses. It looks like an acorn. It looks like the bottom of a boot and then an acorn. It's so funny. And then we need a city, and I think the only reasonable place to put the city is right in the middle. We can just make it one. We can make it super simple. Kana yor baka, kana yor baka, ba-da-da-dum. Kana yor baka, ba-dee-ba-dum, ba-da-bum, ba-da-ba-da, ba-da-bum, ba-da-bee. Hit it. And then we can come up with a name. Kana Yorubaka. Not Kana Yorubaka, Kana Yorubaka. Cheris. Cheriscalda is what we're going to call this place. And there's no real rhyme or reason to, there's no reason specifically that I want the turtle places to sound the way they do. Except that I want them to sound different from the human Erzuli, except that I want them to sound different from the Aragiri, and I want them to sound different from the Sirens, if that makes sense. While still sort of feeling like Kralayoa and Ka'an Yorubaka and Kralayoa very much sound similar. They sound like they live in the same world. But Jalakadiyara and Jai Kahul are cities in one sort of area, and Cheriscalda is clearly denotes a city of a different area, which is clearly different from Trauskar and Ventlum, right? And even Trauskar sounds different enough to Ventlum, where you're like, there might be a real cultural difference there. You can see that it's not an entirely human influence. Now, what can we say about Cheriscalda as a city? Cheriscalda. This is the place where turtles go to give birth to their young. It is as safe a haven as they can make, defended on 3 sides and by land, which keeps out the monsters of the deep. Because we can't forget that it's not just other intelligent people. Other intelligent people are not the only threat these people face. They also face the threat of the terrifying monsters that live down there. You guys have been hearing Facebook go off every single time. No! I am so sorry. I usually mute Facebook. There's been a group chat that's just been pinging like mad this entire time. I am so sorry. Lessons that you learn over time, right? That is truly my bad. Truly, truly, truly. Okay. Well... Ooh, thank you, Jimbly! Facebook was a couple little bleeps, no problemo. Thank you very much for letting me know about that. I'm very glad indeed. Also, hello, Jimbly! Lovely to have you. if you want to message and let me know what you're thinking in the chat, any ideas, any questions, please go ahead. I'm very open to having a conversation. And thank you for that, Solid. I'll keep going unless you want to message, and we can have a little chat about whatever you like. Scalda, the place where the turtles go to give birth to their young. Obviously, a place of significance for their people, and probably there's like a mating season, right? And you know the babies are sort of born around the same time. A place that would be unavailable to traders or anyone not of the turtle race during their hatching season. Launching point for trade, probably. But the actual trading would be done either seasonally during any... Just watching, think your process is sound. Thank you, Jimbly. That's very kind indeed. So I just kind of developed this by doing it over and over again, and so getting to share with people is really fun. And this is sort of the first time I'm getting to do that. So I'm very glad. I'm very glad that it is sound. Actual trading seasonally during these seasons, during the non-hatching seasons, we're gonna call it, because the words are escaping me as we continue on and I continue to talk, or done at one of the security. I keep doing this. Security lookout strongholds. Scalda, done. Triton Archipelago, let's friggin' do it. Tritons. Let's get an idea of what like Triton names sound like. Triton name generator. Whoa, Triton city name generator? That just came up. That wasn't even... Underwater city names. Fantasy name generator. Let's... Oh my god, that's perfect. Neptunas. Julor. Osiari. I like this. Nariria. Skygia. Vaporil. Okay, we're gonna find out. It's Vaporil. I like Skygia a lot. Maybe as a consonant name. Galacalona. I'm not going to put down because Galac feels more like ice than anything. Neriria. I like Neriria a lot. Abirai. I don't like it. Softin. It's interesting. Delphra. Thakadis. Thakadis is strong. Thakadis. Koararan. Azharas. Let's get away from this ad as quickly as we can. So, the Triton Archipelago itself. I like Azharas. I think... Azharia. Let's call it Azharia. A lot of these end with A. That's boring. You don't like boring. As Haril? That's interesting. As Haril. Let's do that. As Haril, and we're going to make it just a little bit bigger as well. It's the name for this area, and the Triton city will be on that big landmass there. So let's put a little marker. What would it be? Would it be somewhere more centered to here? Would the larger landmass actually be something they want to stay further away from? So put your city maybe closer. Or maybe not there. Because you might want to be closer to like the open ocean. So closer to Galar Shahal, perhaps. Let's put it right on the edge, right on the bottom there. And not as Haril, but let's... That... Sky... Sky... Skyfara... 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 Skyfaris? Skyfaris... Skyfara... Skiferus... Opharis. Opharis? Kuat. Faikadi. Go to Faikad. Faikad? Could do the double A. Faikad. Try it. Let's see how it looks. Faikad. Yeah, let's call it Faikad. Took me a little while, that one. And because Gal Shahal is decentralized, we're not going to give them a major city, but Faikad we can give as a major thing. So let's do... And Faikad would probably only need to be a thing because of trade, right? But also we can think that Faikad might be underwater because Tritons. Interesting. So that this merfolk trading thing. If the major trading center is actually trying to protect itself from over there, maybe this is wrong. Maybe that's something else over there. Entirely. Or maybe it's not there. Maybe it's not there. Maybe we subtract. We just take all of that off. Interesting, right? It changes things. If merfolk live in an underwater city and we are sort of like we're going layer at a time, right? We've got like surface layer, and Faikad is a city that just has like the barest amount of on-land presence. Faikad shouldn't be on land, should it? No, Faikad should be in the water. Faikad should be here. And Azharil is a place that they can go. Why would they even go to Azharil? Maybe humans have been going to Azharil. Maybe it's disputed territory. But Azharil is more of a disputed area rather than a hard territory of Tritons. But Faikad is one of the nearby cities of Azharil. And we break it up, and here we go. Here we go. Size. We get a merfolk city that is actually larger. Boom. Now that's interesting. That text. Underwater city name generator. Rem. Scarium. It sounds so much like Skyrim, you can't do it. Skithak. Ooh, I like that. Skithak. Let's think about that. Skithak doesn't sound like a merfolk place, though. Skithak I like. Doesn't sound like a merfolk place. Does not sound like what we're going for. I think that's gonna be over here. Skithakans. Skithakan merfolk are gonna replace the Geol merfolk. I think that one is gone. Skithak. Interesting. Faikad and Skithak. Because Skithak sounds like Scylla, sounds harsh and hard in a different way to the Aragiri. So Skithak, the city of the deep water merfolk who worship the Kunum. I know, yeah, we don't have the accent, but that's okay. The Kunum Dea, they are physically transfigured, whether by the pressure or influences from below. Nobody is sure. Their city is a mismatch of architecture / buildings from other long lost civilizations, because that's one of the things that we were talking about as one of the major ideas, is that the civilizations crumble and fall and sink further down and down into the deep as as the species evolve further to the surface, such as the Sirens, such as the Aragiri, long lost civilizations. And then you get sort of, oh, the imagery of an underwater city of people who are like wretched and love the darkness. Excuse me. In these ruins of these other civilizations, almost like they're living in the scrap heap at the bottom of the ocean. This like deep, silent, beautiful, somber location. And that this is the city of those fallen civilizations. Pieces brought by underwater currents. And piled here over the millennia. Skithakan merfolk have a reverence slash spirituality around darkness and a hatred for the sun and those who walk in its light. While most stay in their city, hunting and scavenging what they can. Some see the benefits of trade with the surface. Even these, however, are careful to do business only during the night and to avoid coming into contact with or witnessing the sun. And you get this idea for the Skithakan merfolk, and some of them will come to the surface and have this hatred, but this like greed. You see what I'm saying? And even with the Skithakan merfolk, this sort of like wretched existence, some people might hate it down there and want to know what the sun looks like. And then you get these heretic that is driven out of their home, and these stories begin to build themselves, and these characters begin to build themselves. And so you could have a Skithakan merfolk living in Faikad and or in Ventlum, and hating living there, but not being able to return home because they've been driven out, or starting to love the sun. Faikad, underwater, Gavoon, depth, city of the Tritons. And the Tritons allows them access to the lands of, what do we call it? Azharil, which is interesting because it doesn't sound particularly Triton. Azharil, maybe named after another civilization that is gone and a species that is fully gone. Let's access the lands of Azharil and the Gallo Shahal. Here they can do trade with turtles and humans. I know we've been focusing a lot on trade, but that's a big deal. Trade is a big deal here, and what different people can offer in trade. Skithakan merfolk often have rare and interesting artifacts of truly unknown and forgotten origin, which can be traded with curious and rich surface dwellers, especially those from beyond the stars. I know. Because you document locale is set to American English, change to British English. Artifacts. It's fine. Artifacts is fine. Even these, however, thank you. So they have trinkets and also special plants and fish life that do not exist closer to the surface. They have a lot to trade, it's just that they don't want to trade a great deal. And there was an idea I had that they could sell like really, really strong. And like, what do people get high on here? Is probably like you could get high on like liquid, which is just like an inhalant. So for them, so it's the equivalent of like a tobacco. Some of which are hallucinogenics, the likes of which most people have never experienced. Hallucinogens. Fair. Skithak. Interesting, right? Interesting. We also need to have some merfolk who are closer, and that's where I wanted that other city to be, near Azharil. So let's go ahead and plop one right there. Let's give it a name. Underwater city names. Koar. Koarin. Koarin. I like it. How are we doing for music? Let's double check. We're still on Skyrim. That's cool. Kuarin. And we can go back to the thing. Kuarin. A city for more mid-depth merfolk who have nothing to do with. Let's get back. These have their own culture and practices, which we won't get into now because I'm starting to get a little bit tired. And also we have other things that we want to... We're just going to ignore that. So now you can see, we haven't updated the entirety of the world building doc, but we would in theory and in the future, I will do that. And we've updated this. We can save it. Saving. Ooh, good thing we did that. Now we have something interesting. Now we've got an underwater city of Quarren. Now we've got, instead of like named archipelagos and continents, we have names for these areas. We've got cities. We've got outposts, security outposts. We've got an idea of trade and the beginnings of talks about resources that people can trade, including metals. Metals up here in Kralayoa, where they get those. We've got an incredible amount of trade going through Utgana and Vendlum specifically. We've got Galoshahal, where it's a very hard, very difficult existence, but people can travel a lot from there, and potentially a lot of like abundant, maybe abundant food sources actually, but not a lot of like maybe resources. We've got Azharil, which still don't know exactly what the deal is with Azharil, but we can leave questions for later. Maybe Azharil is not important to specific stories that we're telling in the moment, but could be something to be figured out for the future. We've got merfolk from Quarin. We've got Faikad, and maybe there are tridents and merfolk who go between these two places. We've got Kanurubaka, where the turtles live, and they're like the central city of Cheriskalda, which would also do trade with Quarin, Faikad, and Vendlum. You start to see how this little trade diamond begins to form itself, right? And we've got Jalakayatra, from which point the Arogiri sort of prey upon the turtles and the humans. When we've got Skithak here, which is sort of separate from everything else, kind of like the people are separate from everything else. These angry people who live in the deep and the dark. And it would be out here sort of in the open ocean, which we would put as text if we were being open ocean. And size, we can make that boom, open ocean. And you know what? We are also going to open catalog. We're just going to put one of these on here as well, because those are fun. I actually might move that just up here. There we go. Open ocean. And save. And the open ocean would be where the majority of the Kujiomara would reside, would be where the majority of the Kujiomara would swim, although they could swim anywhere they wanted to because they're awesome. But this is where like the deep comes from. So yeah, that's a lot of what we had planned. I think the next thing that we will do for the next sort of half an hour, 15 minutes or so, is we've got like nations, right, of course, and nations sort of come as a result of, so Skithak becomes a nation in its own right, as does Kanurubaka becomes the name of a nation as well as the landmass. I want not Azharil, right? Because that wouldn't be a nation in its own right. But Faikad and Korarin would be nations in their own right. And this is where we could start to fill that in further. But what I want to do is I want to have another little subheading, and this is going to be for characters. And as far as characters are concerned, like now we can start to fill in ideas. You know how I've been posing questions this entire time about and sort of like auto-generating ideas for characters. Why don't we start to like make those characters, right? So we've got so a human captain of a trading vessel between Cheriskalda and Vendlum. Okay, that's one character, and we're just gonna do race, occupation, and sort of an idea for their character. And then you could get into naming your characters however you want, and I would go into naming these characters however I want. But for the next like 15, 20 minutes, I am going to just create as many characters as I physically can, and that's where we're going to leave off for the world building of Reyara. And at the end, I'll do a little outro thing. So, human captain of a trading vessel between Cheriscalda and Ventlem. I'm going to say middle-aged, lost an arm to raiders, to Aragiri raiders, is working towards retirement so he can be with his wife and raise his 10 and 13-year-old daughters. So that's sort of like a motivation, what he does, who he is, that kind of deal. Now we're gonna do we're gonna do an Aragiri chieftain of a small clan looking to increase his glory and position in the north in Kralayoa. Slightly smaller than most of his kin. He fights smart, using nets and harpoon guns obtained from pirating new ships from Ventlem. How does he want to increase? Believes that by obtaining new technologies, he can overcome the Great Chieftain. So, slightly underdog, but still in a good position of power. Let's do the opposite thing. Let's say a female. Aragiri. Living in Traushkar. Having escaped the suffocating society she was born in. Now she provides you know what? She runs a bodyguarding service for noble men and women during their time in the city. So sort of like self-made woman, good head for business, and an absolute brute in a fight. These are just all the different kinds of people that might live in this world. You know what? Let's get Wiggy, a Ithacan merfolk who wanted to see the sun and was banished for it. Who went and lives. Ooh, who went and lived in Kawarin and was eventually accepted by the merfolk there. They face discrimination every day, and discrimination and self-loathing every day. But thanks to their partner, a Koaran merfolk, they are slowly getting is getting better right for mental health? Getting better. I'm gonna write it with the understanding that these things are tricky and difficult. Slowly overcoming. They're slowly overcoming these obstacles. Let's do some more. Yeah. Yeah. We're gonna say that there's a religious order devoted to the Kujiel Mara. Total head of the religion which reveres the Kujiel Mara. She resides in... Because the Kujiel Mara are... It's so widespread that I think they've got to be in Ventlam. No, you know what? Maybe that's what Azharil is. It's a neutral place that's not tainted by Outworlders. And so we can put a little marker on there. Open catalog. And our little marker for a religious place is going to be this kind of circle. It's going to be much smaller. And this religious place is not going to be on... it's going to be on a shoreline. And it's going to be... near Fikad. Near... yeah, I think Fikad's got... Yeah, I think that's where it is. And I think this is going to be... Temple of Mara. Which is not a reference to She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, as much as I love that show. That is the Temple of Mara, which is the head of that religious order. She resides at the Temple of Mara in Azhuril. From which location She oversees the religious, or the temples in each other major city. So she's the head of the Roman Catholic Church, is what I'm saying. Turtle, head of the religion, which reveres the Kuchomara. She is ancient even for a turtle. Now, I know that turtles in Dungeons and Dragons live for 50 years. I don't like that at all. I think that it should be more like tortoises, and they live for a very long time, like 500 years. So I think that she's ancient even for a turtle. Having achieved the age of 582, she has held her position for nearly 350 years. So she started at the ripe age of 231. Many believe she is too traditionalist and not progressive enough. Others think she does not do enough to discourage the hunting of the Mara by humans and... Let's get back at more folk. It occurs to me that we have not created any Krokrasny cities on the Reyaran world map. The Krokrasny have been they've been abandoned. Effectively abandoned. Excuse me. Krokrasny. I think there's something that could probably go around here, right? But one more city. And let's make it absolutely enormous. Let's put a city right there. That's a city the size of an island. I'm gonna reduce the size of that. That's insane. The fact that it's insane is that it's underwater. It's an underwater city for the crustacean folk, for the Krokrasny. I don't know how much trade they do. I think that might just be a nation unto themselves. Yeah, and let's name at least one nation after the people as well. So this is Krokras for sure. Krokras is an enormous underwater city. Again, we're just going to save. Because we've added quite a bit. We've changed quite a bit. For everybody who's watched, I wanted to say a huge thank you as well for sticking with us up to this point. For sticking with me as I continue to make this place more fleshed out. Krokras, an enormous country-sized city of coral reefs underwater. I'm thinking like really really colorful coral reefs, like Finding Nemo kind of things, um, and plateaus of relative depths, inspired by the colorful scenes of Finding Nemo. The Krosny do not do a huge amount of trade with anyone and have culture and customs wholly unique unto themselves. They find it difficult to understand the motivations and emotions expressed expressed by other species, and there is next to no overlap in body language. They are brutal in war, but have no interest in the surface as a society. Well, there might be some of them who do, for whatever reason. As a society will be in brackets. They often skirmish with merfolk and tritons, but sing songs of and carve blows in memory of great battles with turtles. Battles they long to reenact. Why? Who knows? They like fighting. Maybe they lost. Maybe they won and want to finish the job. Maybe they don't remember. But the fact that like they're the most like unknowable of these people is very very interesting. It also means that there's probably a potion of air breathing. This is the equivalent of what potion of water breathing that other people have. In any case, the immediate rule that we need to break with this is a Krosny prisoner of war escaped prisoner of war who was injured getting away from Kowarin? Yeah. Kowarin. From Kowarin, and is trying to get back to Kraz and needs the help of those needs the help of people from other races to do so. That's a story hook in and of itself. That's a story I would love to tell. It'd be so interesting. Let's keep going just a little bit longer because I want to make a couple more characters. I'm just interested. New refugee family from a world devastated by the Dahiri Empire, trying to make a new life for themselves on Reyara. They arrive in Ventlum and try to, and you know what? Take out a loan to buy a house in Trouchkar. What else could we do that's interesting? Let's do an Urzulai character. Urzulai. Apprentice at the ossuary who wants to devote himself to the goddess, but is conflicted because he sees how much work there is to do mending relations between natives of Reyara and, ooh, it's a different way of spelling Reyara, that's interesting. Reyara and Outworlders. So it's a question of like where that path leads him. There are a few characters that I've already made for this one shot that I'm not putting on here because people might see it, and also because it's an opportunity to make some new stuff. New stuff. Ooh. Flavor. Arrow. Theory. In charge of, what do we call it? Jai Kahal. And he's a chieftain who holds the mine's ransom until the chieftain grants him his daughter's hand in marriage, because she is very beautiful. So he's starting on a course that will lead to his demise and downfall. And he's just generally a bad guy. Or is he a bad guy? He's definitely a bad guy. All of this does bring up a question about half species, right? Like, what does a half human, half Aragiri look like? A half Aragiri half human. Probably wouldn't have been. Ooh, sent to the mines in Jai Kahal. And who is intent on saving the slaves there and overthrowing the chieftain in charge. This is sort of like a gladiator type story, right? Or what's the Spartacus? Yeah, like a Spartacus type story. A warrior-minded young man who will use the brutality of his, say, father's brutality of his father, combined with the ingenuity of his mother to take down the Aragiri from within. Boom! That's an idea and a half right there. The human governor of Ventlum, who has to wrangle the guild masters and merchants and assembly members and representatives of the Reyaran native races into a cohesive council in order to get things done in the city. And she either fails or is faced with the underlying corruption of the current system, slash syndicates that want to bribe and or threaten her. Syndicates. Where there's money, there are people who are going to lobby politicians. It's an idea. Let's do another one. An elven pilgrim come to visit the ossuary, but who becomes obsessed or fascinated by talk of the Kujiomara and sets out to try to hear their song and uncover more about them. A scholar slash explorer. And a polyglot, obviously. Slash historian. Widely celebrated for recovering much of the history on various worlds that was lost 700 years prior during the God War that destroyed the Esmeran Empire. Typing became fairly poor just then. So, let us wrap up for the night, shall we? What we have done, we have established a series of nations and aesthetics for a few of those nations. We have established cities that belong in those nations and either represent the vast majority of the populations or a lynch point place in those nations. We've got descriptions of who lives there and what they do. We've got the beginnings of commerce and what people do for a living, how they go about making a living. We've got all the beginnings of culture and motivations for the societies versus people. We've got various characters, people who might live and breathe in this world, stories waiting to happen in these people. Plot lines that are waiting to happen with these people on this planet. And on our world map, we have a variety of names, questions left unsolved, and more yet to be done. And yet, I will say, far more detailed and interesting than the last time we left off. So, with all of that done, I say that you get the idea. We have reached a level of detail which I am happy with for the beginning of telling stories on Reyara. So this will bring a close to the second Building Worlds stream. Thank you so much for watching and listening and participating. And next week, I'm going to come back and do this again because I'm having a ball. And I absolutely adore the world that I've made here. This is so cool. And I actually want to keep exploring it. But next time, we're going to move on to a different world. This is a different world that I have mentioned previously in other things. We're actually going to go to a world called Sekahashis next week, which is a world that has sort of a very constant day side and a very constant night side, and what that does to the different evolutionary tracks and of creatures on this world and the different peoples who live on it. So we will explore that next time. Thank you so much once again, and you will find this on Twitch for the next couple of weeks, after which point it will move over to YouTube at Hidden Realms, and there will be a recap version of this, which I will put on my YouTube channel for next week before I go and stream the Sekahashis one. So this is it for Reyara for the moment. 2 for Reyara, and potentially we will do 2 for Sekahashis as well, because this seemed to be a good amount of time to do broad strokes and then get a little bit deeper. Cool. Ta for now.